and we are live and recording, good people and audience of Ecommerce Growth Stories. This is Juliana, and I'm here, and I'm here with Alex, which I'm gonna try to pronounce. Like his last name is not what it looks like, so I'm just
It's
gonna
not. It's
go.
hard.
It's a very hard name. I'm gonna try to do it one more time. So it's Alex McEachern.
McEachern. But and no one ever gets this right. You look at it and it's spelled like McEachern, so that's what I get all the time.
That's
But yeah,
that's that's
McEachern.
how I said it. Okay, okay. So it's. Can you say it again?
Alex McEachern.
Okay, great. So I'm here with Alex. Alex, he's
Yep.
the brand marketing manager for Loop Returns. And right now, coming on the screen in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's my co-host Valentin, who's a bit shy, but I see his face there, and there he is. Hi, Valentin. How are you doing? My special guest again.
I can't hear you. Just a second.
Thank God, because I don't want to look for a new job. So, cool, Alex. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very excited to talk to you because you are in the same space as us. I hope Valentin can hear us now or not. See, this is the type of things that I was telling you when you do a live podcast. Things like this happen, and everyone is seeing them, and you
You're
just have
very
to move
brave.
on. I am very brave indeed. So, Alex, you are the brand marketing manager for Loop Returns. Clearly, a lot of people that signed up today for the show know who you are, but we have people that are listening offline to the podcast. So, why don't you just introduce yourself first, and then tell us a bit more about what Loop does?
Sure. I always say that tell me about yourself is the hardest question that I get asked on any podcast. I feel like I'm not a very interesting person, but I've spent the last 7 years in e-commerce, worked for a loyalty rewards program for Shopify stores called Smile, previously called Sweet Tooth. Spent about 5 years there helping brands build retention strategies and loyalty programs to keep people coming back. And over the last year and a half, I've been with Loop Returns, and Loop Returns is the exchange first returns platform for Shopify. So we basically allow customers to kind of choose their own adventure to get the right outcome for what they're doing with their return, get them that label, and automate that process for the brand.
Okay, cool. So when I first got in touch with you, maybe I don't know how much time it's been, maybe like 6 to 7 months, because the pandemics had me lost all sense of time and space. I think you guys were one of the few, if not the only people. Maybe you have some sort of competition, but I'm not. I don't know of it. But I think you guys kind of pioneered this category of exchange and returns. But before we go and talk a bit more about that, this is something I always ask everyone. I warned you about this. This is my question. How did you get into e-commerce? Because 99% of the times it's always an accident.
I'm not going to break that trend. It was also an accident. I went to school for marketing. And when I came out of college, I was looking for my first job like everyone does. I was talking to two different companies. One was in like forensic investigations. So basically like working with cops to find like evidence digitally. And I was like, oh, I
Wow.
want to work for that. I want to work for that company. And that one ended up falling through. And I took my second choice. And if anyone from Sweet Tooth or Smile's listening, they're probably hearing this for the first time. But ended up working at Sweet Tooth as my second choice. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna see what this is all about, and then maybe I'll find something new. And ended up spending 5 years, like I said, there in the e-commerce world. And while I was there, I just loved the ecosystem so much. I started up my own store just to kind of like keep myself busy on the side. And we were selling men's grooming supplies. So was working for a
Oh,
loyalty
wow.
company on Shopify, also had my own Shopify store going at the same time. So the best accident of my life for sure.
So what's the name of that store, and why didn't I know about that?
Because it's not a store anymore. I ended up shutting
Okay.
it down. It was taking up a little too much of my time for how much money it was making. It was not the most successful store in the world, but it was called Spearhead.life.
Okay, so I guess, running your own store gave you a much more like 360 view of what it is to deal with an e-commerce brand, because it's a lot going on. It's a lot on the plates of of this e-commerce owner. So I guess, it helped you, visualize the whole, I guess, e-commerce brand journey, because we're always talking about the customer journey, but it's also their journey as well, in the industry. So the reason why I invited you over was because I want to talk two big topics with you today. First of all, I want to talk, of course, about retention. But secondly, I also want to talk about the category design and category creation, because, as you know, we are doing kind of the same thing with customer value optimization. And I just want to know, like, if you guys plan to design this category or to own this category in e-commerce, or it just happened.
Yeah, I think where Loop really stands out is in exchanges. So when we're talking about returns, like I wouldn't say Loop's defined the returns category. Returns has been a thing for a really long time. I think where we've carved something out is we say that returns don't equal refunds. And I think that a lot of the e-commerce community, we use those two terms synonymously. A return and a refund are the exact same thing. But 52% of people, when they go to return something, is because they have the wrong size. So if you assume that everyone just wants their money back on something, then you're making a bad assumption, because more than half are just looking to get into a new product, a new size, a new color, or something like that. So the category creation is more around this idea of exchanges being the most important return outcome, and the customer experience and retention side of when you focus on exchanges rather than refunds. So again, I don't know if if people think that Loop created the returns category, great. I think where we're really trying to carve out that category, though, is returns are a marketing asset. They're a customer experience play. It's not just this logistic tool and way to cut costs.
Yeah, and I think you guys come in handy a lot in the customer support part. As you know, my husband works for a common client that we have. I'm not gonna mention, of course. Hey, Valentin, welcome back.
Hey there. The gods of the internet allowed me to join you.
Awesome. I just didn't want to miss the chance to say on live that you were not here, and then you came back. so Valentin, before I continue the question that I have for Alex, I want you to try to pronounce Alex's last name.
Okay, so it's McEachern.
Oh,
that was okay?
Closer than mine. He was closer
pretty close. It's McEachern.
Okay, so McEachern. Okay.
How are you saying it right? Yeah, I'm mad. So just go. I wanted to ask you because I think returns and exchanges are so confusing for brands, in the sense that, again, people are very fast to give the money back instead of trying to actually help the customer. And where I see the biggest use of Loop is in direct relationship with customer support, right? So if someone, obviously, you go to customer support, you say, I want, this, the size doesn't fit me, this product is not good for me, give me a refund. And then if they are saying already that the size is not good for them or it doesn't work for them and they want the refund, is the customer support people, job to say, but don't you want to get the perfect, the better size for you? And I know your platform is like one click thing, and like it's super easy for everyone to use. But how did you educate the brands to understand the difference between a refund and a return? Because I'm assuming you had some sort of issues right there.
How did we do it? I'd say we're still doing it. This idea of refund and return not being the same thing. I feel like a lot of the brands who use Loop, they understand this, and it's starting to become more common knowledge. But yeah, there's definitely still some education to do there. And like you were saying, on the support side of things, like that's definitely an area where Loop helps. And I feel like a lot of times it's, you go to maybe 10 different e-com sites and take a look at the returns page. And a lot of them are going to say, hey, email us, call us, send this product back to this address. And that experience is like really tough for a customer, because, okay, think about the vulnerability you feel when you have the wrong product. Say I bought a pair of shoes and I'm super excited to wear them. I get them, I open up the box, I try them on and they're a size too small or they're a size too big. It's like that moment, I'm very vulnerable. I'm very scared about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability can turn into frustration very quickly. So if I have to then go email someone, that person takes like 3 hours or 2 hours to get back to me, or maybe there's no coverage for a smaller brand. There's no coverage over the weekend and they don't get back to me till Monday. That vulnerability turns into frustration extremely quickly. So if you can turn that vulnerability into like a delight moment, and that's where Loop kind of comes in, is that person can start the return process on their own. They can jump in there. They can quickly say, hey, I just want a new size. I want to go from a size 8 to a size 9. And I can click that. It shows me what my options are. It shows me what's in stock or not. And I can just be like, hey, I want that. I grab the label, hits the post office. As soon as it hits the post office, the next product's on its way out to me.
I agree. And I think it's so bad in general when you, like, sometimes because the whole process is so shady and so confusing, people just give up on trying to return, especially if it's a low value product. When you spend more money though, that is when the interesting thing begins. I think Valentin had to return a lot of what was that, Valentin, that you bought and you had to return the how do you call it? Whew. It's an English word that I don't find right now, but Valentin wanted to return it. Oh my God. Yeah. So I mean, what I mean is that when the product is more expensive, the frustration is even worse. And why do you think brands don't communicate very well this part with returns and exchanges?
Yeah. So what you were saying there about like people keeping returns. So we did a consumer research study and we found that 90% of people have kept something that they actually wanted to return. So that just speaks to like returns in the past, or even for most brands right now, is a very confusing process and like a very time consuming process. And a lot of people say like, hey, that's not worth it. And for those more expensive items, like that's where people start to say, okay, it's worth it. Like I bought, I don't know, $700, I don't know, MP3 player. Do people still buy those? Probably not. But if I'm holding
an iPod or whatever,
an iPod, those even exist. I feel like everyone's just using their phone. But anyway, if you have a really, really expensive purchase, you're going to be much more likely to actually engage in returning that. And I feel like the problem isn't that like on the customer side. I feel like the problem is actually on the brand side right now, because when brands think of returns as a cost center, it's like, okay, how do I reduce my costs? I try to make it so that people don't want to return. And like when, hey, email me, call me, send, like the worst one is like, hey, here's an address, just send that product back to this like doc and like hope something happens. I feel like brands are either consciously or subconsciously trying to deter that return from happening because they don't want to do a refund and give the money back. Now they're out the price of the product, they're out the price of shipping it. There's a lot of costs associated with that. So when people are in cost mitigation mode, they make things harder. They bury it. Like sometimes when we go to a brand, you're going to go to the bottom of their site and you're looking for that returns link. You can't even find it. You got to go into like the FAQs. In the FAQs, go into like returns and shipping. And you got to go like 6 steps to find like, how do I actually return something? And people burying that, people hiding it, I mean, in my personal opinion, that's a bad call because returns are a huge opportunity for your business. It's not just a cost to mitigate.
I absolutely agree. And I think when you do this type of service, obviously you're not going to get consumers to buy again from you because your experience is shit. So at the end of the day, the same people that, you're making the life so hard for, you're going to bomb them with sales messages, like buy this and get this discount too. And, let's get you, go through all this shit again. So I agree. And I think it's one of the hidden layers of customer experience. And I don't think we talk enough about this part of customer experience. Don't you agree, Valentin? Because I don't think we talked about this.
I was actually looking at the benchmarks on your website, Alex, on Loop, and it's one insight that is one out of 4 customers will return, and that means if 1 out of 4 customers will return, they will be on the website, while the website is doing only the job of buying. I mean, it's addressing only the job that the visitors have in order to buy a new product or to buy a product, not to return, not to ask things regarding their shipment, nothing like that. And I think it's a tremendous job that you are doing, addressing this part of the customer journey. Let's say my concern is, or my curiosity is, why are so few companies aware about the fact that returns are so important? I mean, it's easy to actually look at your own data. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, why? I guess that boils down to like, why aren't people paying attention to this? And 100% agree with what you were saying there. It's like every site is optimized to get people to buy. And at Loop, what we say is like, you shouldn't be optimizing for people to buy. You should be optimizing for people to shop. And shopping doesn't stop when like I just go to the cash register and check out. It's like, it's everything that's going into like, what does the product look like? If I do need to exchange or do anything there, like the customer experience doesn't stop at the purchase. And we call that post-purchase. Why do so few brands pay attention to this? I don't know. One, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get into this conversation at some point during this talk, but like acquisition versus retention, like the e-commerce community is very obsessed with ads, buy more, sell more. How do I get as many customers in the door as possible? We're only now starting to see, like, I would say a meaningful shift onto the retention side of like, how do I maximize the value of the customers I already have? How do I be everything to the customers I do have? And that's where returns start to enter into the equation. And a lot of times, like, I think a lot of brands, when they first get started, they don't have a high enough volume of returns to really care about it. So it ends up being this like page where like, basically they just go and check another brand, copy it, put it on their site, and like they don't even touch it until returns become a big enough problem to like actually reevaluate that. So that's also my theory on why every return policy is 30 days, is because a brand just makes one, another one comes and copies it, another one comes and copies it, and everyone just perpetually makes 30-day return windows.
That's funny. That's hilarious. And I think it's also true, because you're right. Actually, I did some research at some point, and that's true. Like the terms of services, the shipment, the return policies is mostly like a Xerox all over the internet. Probably Nike did it first, then someone took it, and it got to the to the smaller mid market here, and everyone is using the same things. At least they're changing the name of the company, which is always good, because otherwise, you're right, it's a Xerox copy. So you said the right words earlier. There's this meme circulating with me on LinkedIn with acquisition and customer lifetime value, when it's like a Simpson person, and when I hear customer lifetime value, I get summoned and acquisition. So I have to show that to you, Valentin. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's just like people are nuts. So I wanna ask you something in regards to what you were saying earlier. So I think indeed in the market it's a lot of progress when it comes to how we approach retention, and retention is more I guess talked about than it was like 2 years ago. And I think all of us here even in the audience and us here talking, we're responsible for spreading that good word. But at the same time, there's also a very big barrier for brands, and I'm sure you have encountered this as well, because you also do client facing in your job. So why do you think people are so fast and comfortable spending I don't know who said, I think Aaron from Hush said spending bitcoins on ads and not wanting to invest into retention, even if retention is it has a high ROI. It's everything, but people are very fast to purchase. I don't want to make actually a leading question, so why do you think that happens?
I think the reason that ecom puts so much emphasis on acquisition is there's two reasons. I think it's the way it's always been done. So like anyone coming into e-commerce, or like, let's be like, realistically, ecom hasn't been around for that long. So like you talk to a lot of people in e-commerce, and like they've maybe been in ecom for like 3 years. A lot of people are coming in, like there's a lot of an influx of people joining ecom right now. And what's the first thing you're going to do is you're going to start to research, and you're going to start Googling around, like, what should I be doing? I'm brand new into e-commerce. What's my job all about? And like all the literature that's out there right now is all about like return on ad spend. It's about like being efficient, like with your Facebook ads, your Instagram ads. So there's just so much education out there on acquisition that someone new coming in, when they go to look, it's what they're going to find. So I think that's one reason. Second reason is acquisition is like the quickest dopamine hit in the world. It's like I start an ad to like this morning and I can start to see results from that in the afternoon. So it's very easy to attribute like, oh, sales are coming through as a result of something I did. And that retention's not like that. Like if you start with retention right now and the idea is like, how do I get a customer to come back and make another purchase? If your time between purchases is like 30, 40 days, I do something today and I'm not going to know what happened with that for another 40 days. So I think from like people's perspectives, it's riskier, right? It's like I'm doing something right now and I don't know what happened for another 40 days. And I think the industry doesn't have enough leading indicators to be like, okay, what are the things that happen between this and a sale? So I think a lot of people get started with it and then they kind of throw it away because they didn't give it enough time.
Yeah. However, people are still gardening after millennials, right? And they plant the seeds and they wait for months to see what's happening. And I think that means the long-term perspective, companies will be the winners, because you need to take into account this part of the customer journey as well. And getting back to what you're saying, I think it's amazing, because this short sight approach is somehow becoming the norm. When you are looking at discussions, forums on the e-commerce groups and so on, you only see things like CPM, ROAS, and so on. It's like those are the only things that matter, and nobody's paying attention to the fact that we need more case studies and best practices about what's happening post the first purchase, and few people are even aware about things that you said about what is the average time between the transactions. How can I take into account the buying cycles so that I'm not bombarding the customers with other things while they haven't finished consuming maybe the products that I've sold.
Yeah, I love that. I love that gardening metaphor. Like I use gardening like acquisitions, hunting, retentions, farming. Like farming, you're not going to feed yourself right away, but it's going to be a hell of a lot more efficient when that farm gets going than it is to go out and like hunt and gather berries. And the other analogy I use is like starting with acquisition when you first get into e-com is like stacking cans on top of one another. Like if I start stacking cans one on top of the other, you're going to look at my tower and go, wow, that's getting really tall really quick. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm doing so well. And you guys are over there building like a really solid foundation. You're a little bit slower out of the gate, but we're going to get to a point where I put one more can on and my whole tower falls down. And you guys are going to have a solid foundation where you can keep building. And that one can on the top is like, okay, I have spent all the way up to like what I make on a purchase. So like if I put $1 more into acquisition, like I'm actually losing money unless I can get that person to come back and make a second purchase. So like I'm stuck until I figure that out.
Yeah, that's right. One other thing what I think it's important is that the market doesn't still have benchmarks so that they can see if they are doing a right job or not. And they can't even be aware if what they are doing and all their, let's say, marketing, onboarding activities, and so on are good enough compared to other players. And that's why we got a lot of let's say insights by analyzing the data like you've done with the refunds and returns. We've analyzed data from 1,500 e-commerce companies, and we looked at what should be the average days between the transactions if you are selling, I don't know, cosmetics. And having those type of benchmarks I think are going to use to help the market become aware about the importance and where they should be. However, in the process, there are thousands of companies which are dying or are not fulfilling their potential because of using a broken system. And I think what you're helping with your solution and your approach is to help companies have a systematic approach on e-commerce growth. It's like an operating system which should be fixed. And they are, who's not doing that, they are actually going into the market with a prototype which is using, I don't know, all sorts of stitches and scotch tapes and whatever and they keep on pouring gasoline into a machine which is not validated yet.
Yep, 100%. I use a very similar analogy. It's like, oh, I have this machine that I put wood into and it makes me toothpicks. And it's like I put a giant redwood tree in and it gives me a toothpick. You shouldn't say, okay, how do I get 2 toothpicks? Is not go get another tree and put it in this machine to get a second toothpick. It's like what's going on in the middle that's going to make me more efficient with what I'm doing there. And I love what you guys are doing with the benchmarks too, because there's not enough information out there on like how should I stack up on the retention side of things. And like even if you look inside of Shopify, like the Shopify dashboards, like how many of the metrics and like the insight that I get in Shopify is retention oriented versus acquisition oriented. Like I think your returning customer rate is probably like the only metric you can grab directly from Shopify to look at any of this.
Yeah, we know.
I mean, that's why you guys exist.
Yeah. It's you're right. I think just like another dimension to what you said, I think a lot of people are playing not to lose instead of playing to win, because it's some sort of fear that, if you don't produce every month, you're not, I guess, it's as you said, it's an adrenaline shot. It's like it's ecstasy, it's like gambling. You get it. You need that quick win, and I think the mentality of the quick win is what's the most wrong about our space in general. And talking about that, I want to ask you what something positive and something not so positive. So I'm going to start with the positive because I'm such a positive person in general. I'm not. So I wanted to ask you this. Besides returns and exchanges, what do you think are some that's John. Yeah, John, stop asking questions when I'm live, man, because you're distracting me. I have to edit this now. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this. So what are the layers of customer experience besides the one that you guys are in right now? You think are overlooked and and missed from the whole picture?
Yeah, so I mean, beyond returns and exchanges, I think that it's everything on the other side of like off the website. Like I feel like everyone from a customer experience standpoint, like they've really figured out the experience that they're creating on the website. And we're seeing a few more people figure out like, okay, the unboxing experiencing and like packaging, I think has become like something that has a little bit more of the spotlight on it. I think the bigger piece that people miss is like your product itself. Like the product is such a big piece of customer experience and a big piece of retention that I feel a lot of people miss. It's like, I think retention, I think like loyalty programs, email marketing, SMS, like there's a lot of things in here with retention that I can like act on, but your product plays like a big part in that as well. Think about what you sell. Is there like an additional product that you can layer into that? How can you change your product? So like if you're selling bottles of shampoo, like different sizes of bottles have like a huge impact on your retention. So I'd say the layer of the customer experience is like the actual physical product itself gets overlooked in favor of like the virtual experience of the website.
Yeah, I think that's valid. And I think this is one of the reasons why Valentin, ripped himself from the herd back in 2018, because I don't know if you know, but we actually come from the conversion rate optimization space. And I might piss some people off by saying this, but it's what it is. You can do whatever you can on the website until a point. If what happens post purchase doesn't match what you're promising on the website through whatever hypothesis and heuristics and whatever, it's zero. Because if you need the repeat revenue. In this case, I'm talking about revenue, repeat revenue from the same source consistently. If you don't have that, you don't have a sustainable business. And what's shocking to me is that a lot of brands don't really care about that. because they are just living with the impression like, look, I just acquired 1,000 people this month, I'm Gucci. And then I'm asking them, okay, but did you take out the acquisition cost out of this, the revenue you did this month? And they're like, yeah, I mean, we spend so little on ads. And then I told them, yeah, but what about the tools? What about the overhead? What about the salaries? And everyone is like gasp and, crickets, and you don't hear nothing. And I think it's backwards. So I want to ask you something. You know probably what's happening right now with Facebook and iOS and the ridiculous, huge CPM costs. I was actually speaking about this. So I wanted to ask you. I heard this not even theories, but the future of what's going to happen with people basically losing their own website funnel to Facebook or Instagram or whatever, because we're going to enter this era when all the giants are going to basically go into shoppable content. So the whole data that you might usually get from a website might disappear because you don't have a funnel anymore. So everyone is going to start a bidding game. So it's going to be like, how much do you want this sale? Cool, I will give it to you. I'm Facebook, I'll give it to you. But how much are you willing to pay for it? So the brand is going to get is not going to have the control anymore on what happens on their funnel. So what do you think brands should do right now, given that this is imminent? It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's sure as hell going to happen in the next months.
Yeah. Build your audience. You can't rely on someone else to find the people that you need, especially now, because things are going to get a lot more expensive. And actually the level of data you have access to as we move forward is going to become less and less. So I really am a big believer in WebSmith has this theory of linear commerce. And it's basically that media and products are just going to merge into one thing. And I think that e-com brands should really be paying attention to that, because this is becoming, the audience part is becoming harder, and having a product and having an e-com site is getting easier. So think about all the people who have audiences right now, those influencers that you're using to help you market. What's stopping them from getting into the game themselves? Because they have the eyeballs, and as the eyeballs become more expensive and harder to get, they already have the more valuable resource, and they're going to be able to launch a product like that. So my biggest piece of advice for brands would be think about content, think about community, think about these ways where you can get people to engage with you with more than just what you're selling. And content marketing has been a huge thing in B2B SaaS for years, but almost no e-com brands are getting into the content game. And when I say content, I'm not talking about you need a blog, I'm even talking organic social. Have a YouTube channel, have an Instagram presence, just have something where people are going to be around you naturally, where you don't need to be paying for these eyeballs. Because like you said, it's going to get more expensive, and it's going to be harder to target to what you want. Right now, it's so easy. And so, I shouldn't say right now, a few years ago, so easy and so cheap to get the right type of person on your site. It was shooting fish in a barrel, but that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. And it's going to become worse and worse. And it was supposed to to happen, and I guess the people that won't be able to adapt to what's happening or understand or believe what's happening, because for various reasons, I always say this is we're gonna experience a very big thinning of the herd when it comes to brands, but also when it comes to agencies and service providers and everyone basically in our scene. So I definitely think we're living very interesting times. I'm sorry, Valentino, one more question, and then I promise I wanted to also ask you something, because John here made me laugh. I'm not gonna, I could actually say that John said, so to get him into trouble, he said this, Shopify, that these people haven't purchased in a while, so you should probably send them a coupon code. There you go, John. No, I wanted to ask you a legit question. John is also talking about this company journey versus customer journey, and basically what he says, and I really like, was one of the things that he said that I really like, and I asked this this to a lot of people. What do you think is the biggest difference, if you are aware of the concept? What does the company want and what actually the customer wants? So what you think are the biggest differences between the company journey and the customer journey?
Yeah. So John, I'm sorry, I haven't read into the complete theory, but I have the gist of it. And I think the biggest disconnect, like what John said in the chat here, is hey, someone hasn't bought in a while, let's send them a coupon code. It's You, the brand, are looking for a sale. They, the customer, are looking for, could be any number of things. I'm looking for a solution to a problem. I'm looking for I don't know, I'm buying supplements because I want to get in shape. I'm buying hair oils because I want my hair to grow longer. Like there's all these different ways that the customer's looking to achieve something. And if you, the brand, aren't in tune with what they're looking to do, you're just going to continue to bombard them with, stupid offers to try to get them to come back. And like, people think they work because at volume it does. If I send out 100,000 coupon codes, yeah, I'm going to generate a couple sales because people are just like, I just got in front of someone at the right time and they came there. So the thing I like to say is like, imagine you're selling jewelry, and instead of saying like, hey, here's 50% off like your next purchase, it's like, say you're selling silver. I know silver starts to tarnish around this time. Like, hey, here's the cleaning supplies, here's the cleaning cloths, and like work the product offers and like what you're offering to people into the journey that they're on. Because if you don't, you're just blindly throwing coupon codes around, and like, yeah, they might work every once in a while, but it's a volume game, and like the volume game isn't going to work for that much longer.
It definitely won't.
Alex, I think your approach is let's say opening a new horizon on our conversation. So, from your perspective, you've seen a lot of brands handling returns differently. What would be the main things that you would recommend to companies willing to nail this? Because the outcomes would be, A, you will get less friction and less people handling returns and so on. B, you will have more satisfied customers, which will be willing to come back and buy again from you. But how would you do this? Let's say you're suddenly one of those influencers that have a lot of eyeballs, and you are, let's say, launching your product. How would you do this?
Yeah, I think what it boils down to is what we've already been talking about. It's taking a customer-centric approach to your returns. So we talked a bit at the beginning here about like burying and hiding it. Pull it out. Some of the best brands that we're seeing, they don't just have it in the footer, they'll have a banner, because like your return and exchange policy can have a huge influence on your conversion rate too. Think about like people, they have never bought from you before, and like they're evaluating how risky is this purchase. If you say I have 90 days to decide, and hey, if you want to exchange this, it's free, it reduces that perceived risk and actually makes them more likely to buy. So I would say get your return policy out of the footer. Don't bury it. Make sure people can see it. Number 2 would be like on the policy itself, don't make this look like something you need to get your lawyer to come check out before you make a purchase. Make it super easy. And I always say there's basically like 5 things that people are looking for. It's how much is this return going to cost me? Make sure that is up on your return policy page, because people want to know. And I can get into some tactics on like where you should charge return shipping and where you shouldn't. How long do I have? So what's the return window? What can't I return? So if something's final sale or ineligible for return, what are those? How long will it take? So like reducing that perceived risk again is, if I need an exchange, how long till the next product's going to be at my door? Or if I'm getting a refund issued, how long until I'm going to see that charge refunded to my credit card? And where do I actually start the return? Like, where do I go to start the return? So obviously, if you use something like Loop, it's like, hey, here's the button to get started. But if you're not going to use something like that, but I highly recommend you choose something to make this a more on-demand experience. What email address do I use? What's the phone number? Where do I actually get this started?
I think people should definitely use Loop, and I don't work for them, but I think they definitely should use your software. Actually, seen it in action, and I think it's like a no-brainer. It's so easy, and that's why I wanted to have you here, because then thank you for this. I'm gonna make sure this is gonna go on our episode notes. I think a lot of people should focus on this aspect of the customer experience and this aspect of the customer journey. And I think this is something, again, that can increase the customer lifetime value, because this is, Valentin and mine's favorite topic. But yeah, I think this is something that it's highly overlooked. I think it mixes very well with customer support, in my opinion. And this is an added value that the customer support can come with when you have someone that's like, I want to return, I want a refund, I want to get this back. This doesn't fit me. So it's a great upsell technique as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. My last question to you before we wrap up is, tell me one thing that you hate and one thing that you love about e-commerce.
One thing that I hate about e-commerce, I think we've covered it like through this entire episode, is just this. If I hear one more person start a conversation with me with like ROAS, it's driving me nuts.
Would
One
you say
thing
it's a vanity metric?
I'll leave that for you two to decide on that. But if every single conversation I have with people, like it always just it somehow railroads to talking about that. One thing I love about e-commerce, I know this is a cop-out answer, but like pretty much everything else, like it's an industry where we're all learning together as we go. Like it's so new, it's growing so fast, especially over the last year. Like we've all been thrown into some situations that like we never would have expected, and being able to learn and grow alongside that, and just like the community of it all. Like I know some of the brands we work with are listening in right now, and just the connections and the relationships that like myself personally and Loop's been able to make with the brands out there has been the thing I love the most about e-commerce. So to sum that up in one word, community. The community of e-commerce is unbelievable.
I agree. And actually, I got friends with brands and with people after I've been in your podcast. Because guys, Alex has a podcast. It's called The Exchange, which he's doing with Tim Busa, because his last name is easy, unlike yours.
Easier to say, yep.
Yeah, and you guys should definitely check The Exchange out. It's a very, very good podcast, and they have great guests. And I got friends with a lot of people. So for the brands that are listening to Alex today, please check review on the App Store or Shopify if you don't use it yet. Look, John is going on ROS. Thank you so much for coming today, and for having this conversation with us. I want to ask you, where can our audience find you so I can add this in our episode notes?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to follow along with what we're up to is The Exchange, our podcast. Pretty active on LinkedIn, so if anyone wants to follow me on LinkedIn, good luck spelling my last name, but just look up Alex Loop and you'll find it, or I'm sure we'll get the link into the show notes. But yeah, LinkedIn's the best place to engage with me. The podcast. We also have a blog through Loop, so we're releasing weekly content on basically some of the more detailed tips and tricks of what you should do with your return policy. Awesome.
Well, I dropped the link here for the people that are watching right now live, and for the other ones, check the episode notes. Thank you. This was a great conversation to have. I agree with you. If I speak about acquisitions one more time, it's gonna point. It's what it is. So thank you so much for being here. This was fun, which I hope this podcast it is for everyone that's listening. And yeah, I'll see you around. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Alex.